Happy Monday, everyone. A little bit of Monday motivation to get our week started. So, it's important that you do not despise small things. Don't despise starting small because little things become big things. And that's the natural process of life. And I think a lot of us want to get into life and rush towards, playing big and being big without going through the steps, the necessary steps that are going to get us there. So it's the same as a human being that when you are young, you first have to start learning how to crawl as a baby. Then you start standing up in order for you to learn to walk. And then only after practicing a bit of walking, then you will attempt to run. And so it's pointless to start, to want to start running when you haven't even figured out the basics yet. And I see so many young people, and not just young people, there are older people who simply haven't learned this lesson as well, in terms of rushing towards the mark without first paying your dues. And it's a literal system of life that there are certain basics that you have to go through before you reach the pinnacle, whatever that pinnacle is for you. So everything starts small. It starts as a seed which gets watered through wisdom, through learning, through teachings, and then from that, it will grow, right? And so nature always gives us the example through plants and even animals that we see around us as to what the process of life is. And what life doesn't like is for you to skip stages, because I'm sure if you haven't found out already, you will find out that if you skip certain stages in life, life will take you back to the stage that you skipped. And it can be so painful where you have skipped a stage that was supposed to be done, perhaps maybe in your growth phase in your youth, and you just felt like that wasn't for you, and you skipped the stage, and now you are in middle age and basically find yourself stuck, not knowing whether you are coming or going, not knowing why you are even stuck in a certain position, only to find that there's a key step in your learning that you missed earlier on. So it's important to know that, as I said before, life is about running your own race. So don't get into the trap of trying to skip certain stages just because maybe some of your buddies, your friends, family members, people that you know are now further ahead than you, or maybe they are at a stage that you feel you should be at. It's not like that, because we have our own process of evolving through our own experiences, through our own tests. And really, that is actually what life is. It's a series of cycles, and all these cycles have a certain test that you have to pass. And if you don't pass the test, you basically get to repeat the grade, right? Similar to the example of grade 1 to matric. There's no way for you to get to matric grade 12 when you haven't passed these other stages from grade 1 onwards. So it doesn't matter were you condoned or you actually passed, but you actually have to have gone through those stages. So even spiritually speaking, I mean, if you look at some of the stories in the Bible, like, David had to be a shepherd before he eventually became king. Moses had to be 40 years in the desert shepherding as well before he could come back to Egypt as a politician in order to free his people from bondage. And even Jesus Christ had to be a son of a carpenter and be carpenter himself before he could be crowned in glory. So it's important to understand that big things start small. So don't feel bad or discouraged by the fact that sometimes in life you have to start small and you also have to start over again. Using myself as an example, my career started in the mid 90s as a student, and my very first job was as a bank teller. So I always knew that I'm going to end up in commerce somehow, but at that stage, my parents couldn't afford, the full tertiary fees. So I decided, look, whilst, they're pulling on their side, I'm going to pull on my side and start working weekends. And that's basically what I used to do on Fridays and Saturdays, working as a bank teller in Johannesburg. Now, that was not the end for me. So basically, I used that as my stepping stone. And I want to say that the issue with starting small is that sometimes people get stuck because you started small, now they get stuck in being small and staying small. And that is the mindset that we want to get out of, right? Yes, we are appreciating that little things become big things, but it's still important that as you are starting at the beginning, starting small, is to still keep dreaming big. Keep having those bigger goals so that you're not going to stay there. Because the problem is when you stay there, when you start embodying being small and shrinking yourself, staying small and acting small. No, you're still supposed to get to that bigger pinnacle, be a bigger person, right? Because it's about from small, getting from small to big, bigger, biggest, not small, smaller, smallest. And sometimes you find that we go in that direction where we actually internalize being small rather than using the small things that we start with that hone in our skills, that help us to practice and gain more knowledge to make us bigger. So never, 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 think that because you started small, you'll never amount to anything or be much bigger. You definitely will be. Once again, even as I started as a bank teller, I made some mistakes. I made some lateral moves. Some moves were upwardly mobile, yes, because I still had my eye on the prize, but circumstances also dictate which direction to move. But as long as you are moving forward, right? Because not all movement is progress. So you need to make sure that as you are moving, you are progressing and not regressing. And I eventually, before I left the corporate space, I made it to the C-suite as a chief operating officer in financial services. So I want to tell you today that it can be done, but you need to maintain your focus and you will be tested along the journey in terms of making certain decisions where perhaps you need to start over or maybe relook at your plans and see how you can get to your goals in a better way. But never, never, never in that process discount or even be in a place where you despise the little things, because those little things and those little baby steps will end up being big steps that take you to the big things.